one more time, one more last ride with us. Our buddy James Ham. Hammer, what's happening, man?
What's going on, guys?
Good, man. Good. We just went down the list. I don't know if you heard, we're doing the top 25 uh, Kings games of this past season.
Okay.
The list starts on Monday, but I had some honorable mentions to about 3 or 4 games, honorable mentions. Let's see if any of these, I know you'll know them, but do you have any thoughts from any of these? Opening night against the Blazers, loss.
What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about that opening night game against Portland?
You know, it's funny. John Dickinson, who we all know, right?
Mhm.
John remembers every single game, every date, like what the whole outcome was of every game. And for me, after covering so many years, so many games, they all blend in together. Like there are games that jump out. But like overall, I just think that the excitement coming into a season is always fresh and new. And opening night, it was one that just like gave you a reminder that this team hadn't figured it out for a long time, regardless of where they were and, you know, the new additions and the new coaching staff and everything else. You learned that it was going to be a process. And I remember right after, well, they were 0-4 to start the season. And I went to a local brewery here for somebody's birthday in Auburn, and there was a Kings fan there. And like he kind of like we bumped into each other, I'll say, and he was panicking. And I'm like, look, this team is a lot better than they've shown so far. And so like just hold out for a minute. Like they're going to be okay. Just because I had been around the team so much at that point that I saw what they were building and how they were trying to build it, and the spirit was different and all that stuff. And they just couldn't figure out how to win early on. So if there's one game that stands out there, I don't know what it would be. I just remember them dropping the first 4 and they run in together just like, you know, the 2002 Western Conference playoffs.
It's a very eloquent answer, James, but it's the wrong answer. The correct answer is that damn technical foul on Terrence Davis. That's
okay.
The answer.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Salty referee. Dude, don't look at Dame Lillard that way.
Crazy. Just kind of looked at him, just kind of peeked at him and gave him a tech. That was terrible. That was terrible. James, to your point, though, I do remember people were really, they weren't mad after that game. They were almost hurt. They were like deflated. They thought
the Portland game?
Yeah, they wanted to start the season with a win so bad.
Yeah.
And not even the fact that they lost, the way they lost. They blew the lead. They had the lead for much of the second half, blew the lead. Our guy, De'Aaron Fox, had some costly turnovers. And people were just kind of sad, like, oh no, like maybe they're not that good.
Well, I mean, I think that's the typical Kings response. You have to always find, you know, it's always, oh no, you know, because for the last 16 years, that's what it was up until this last season, you know. And then we talk about like, that's their only 4-game losing streak of the entire season. Right. And then they lose 3 like in November or early December, and they don't lose 3 in a row again for a long time. And I just always want to point out to people like, look, these things happen. Like there's always potential for a losing streak. The Kings like had a really good mentality about them last season, but at the same time, like you could walk into this next season and lose 5 in a row, like in mid-December. I mean, that's just the way the NBA goes. You have an injury, you have stuff snowball, you have a bad run of games, like those things happen. And so, yeah, like I guess I should remember better, like game in and game out, but that's just not the way my brain works. And I don't take copious amounts of notes. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen what Brendan Nunez does.
That is like that close to psycho behavior.
It is psycho behavior. Yeah.
Like he has like 10 pen colors and
yes, he color codes everything. Yeah.
It's incredible.
It's absolutely wild. And that's not how my brain works. So like when I don't take notes when I watch a game, I do my 6 quick thoughts and I write them during the game, things that are standing out to me, but that's how my brain works. I like sort of collect data by watching and figuring out what's happening and then mirror it to the box score and like make sure that what I saw matches up to what actually happened and then go from there.
I'm almost envious of the way Brendan's mind processes information. Like
it's a lot on
Yeah.
that notepad.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And I like to write, so I'm like, damn.
Everyone's different. Everyone is totally different how they do their notes and everything else.
I got one more for him before we get anything. One more out of him. I think he'll have some thoughts from this one.
Okay.
The November 7th at Warriors loss. Kevin Huerter gets fouled 3 times in the final play.
On one shot. He gets fouled 3 times.
On one shot.
And they missed all 3 of them. Damn the luck. They missed all 3 fouls.
Just run off the court. Like, there's nothing to see here. It almost felt like that was the turning point of the season. That loss, because they lose that game, they win 7 straight. They kind of never really look back. And I think that was, I'm pretty sure that was the press conference when Malik Monk was like, nah, we're right here. We're okay. We're right here. We just got to do a couple things here and there, but we right there. What are your thoughts about that game? That, like I said, essentially kind of changed the season after that.
Yeah, that's in that block of games where they play the Warriors like every other day. And I think the one thing that stood out during that point, again, like the Huerter situation that happens, it wasn't great for sure. But the thing that stood out in that one is the same thing that stood out in the previous one where they lost, was that Chimezie Metu all of a sudden meant something different to that team and was able to like change the complexity of a game without having a big game. Like his ability to switch on defense, to defend multiple positions and stuff, it really stood out then. And like, I'm hard on Chimezie at certain points in the season because I always feel like Chimezie does really, really well for long stretches and then loses his way. He almost gets like too built up with himself and then starts trying to do things that he shouldn't do. And it always stands out and it always ends up to be like bad things happen. But it was during that time where you started to really see not just Chimezie's value, but the need for that length and athleticism and switchability with the rotation. And like that, it really was like a spotlight on the glaring weakness of the team. And so, yeah, those games, like all of those games against Golden State early on, they were tough. They were learning lessons. And just like at the end of the season, they learned a lot of lessons by playing that team in the playoffs. And they'll be better for it. And I think they were better for playing the Warriors that many times early on before the Warriors kind of imploded and had a bunch of really rough times and then, rebounded to have a somewhat strong finish. But yeah, I think that's what stands out in that game.
We got the Warriors at their 2 best points in the entire season, at the beginning and at the end. That's when they were.
I can't wait to get them in the in-season tournament next year when they're imploding.
Yeah, well,
yeah,
they play good at the beginning and the end, not in the middle.
James, I feel like I do you are there any games or maybe singular moments from last season that you can say, this is one of my favorite times covering the Sacramento Kings?
Yeah,
covering Sacramento.
Yeah, I mean, like every season has like the big game winners. I think the Huerter game winner was crazy, and that's something I think Mike Brown points to all the time as like a huge turning point in the season.
I think Monty does too, if I remember correctly. I think Monty referenced that moment during one of his press conferences.
Yeah, I mean, it is a moment that it not only galvanized the team, but it showed you the unselfishness of the group and they're sort of like steady under like really difficult situations. And then, like throughout the season, like there's always something that stands out. All of the times the Sabonis gets hit in the head and just keeps going. I think the Trey Lyles choking incident that stands out as like a big moment though. It's like, hey, look, everyone keeps saying we're soft. And then Trey Lyles is like, oh, no. That's not what's happening here. You're going to be disrespectful. Then you're going to feel it. And so like, I thought that was great. Like there are moments that mean more than just like a win or a loss. And, you talk about the 7-game win streak or, those games where they're teetering on the brink of having like a losing streak, but they figure out a way to win. I just thought it was a fun season. And again, they blend in together more than anything else.
Hammer, what did we learn today about Sasha's contract? I saw you tweet a couple of things that I don't think we knew before.
Yeah, actually, I had some discussions with Mike Scotto too from Hoops Hype. He's a good dude. We went back and forth DMing each other earlier today. So Sasha Bezenkov, a 3-year, $20 million deal. I think it's, I have the numbers here. I got them from Mike, what the exact numbers are for his contract, which are really, really good for the Kings. So it's, let me see if I can find it. 6.34 million in year 1, 6.65 in year 2, and 6.97 million in year 3 for a grand total of 20 million over 3 years. But the final year is a team option. And that is absolutely tremendous for the Kings because, we all like to think that, Sasha Mania is taking over here in Sacramento and everyone's so super excited to see Sasha. And we just don't know what he's going to look like on an NBA court. We know he can shoot. We know he's has all the back cut stuff that he does that I think is really, really impactful and will be good for this team. High basketball IQ, physical, all those things. But that doesn't mean he's going to be an NBA player. We hope that he is. We think that he will be. The track record of European prospects that are that good in Europe coming over, shows that he should be pretty solid. But that last year, if it doesn't work out, you have the option to walk away. And the other thing is, if you have a player for 3 years, you get their Larry Bird rights. And so that's another aspect where, the Kings will be able to go over the cap with him in his final year, after his final year, if it does all work out. And so we got a guy who's almost 28. He's coming over, I think, August 6th. He'll be 28 years old. So you got him in his 28, 29, and 30 seasons. That's his prime. You're getting a guy in his prime that should be able to walk in and step into an NBA rotation and has a skill set that fits perfectly. And you just hope it all works. But if it doesn't, you're okay. You got some fail safes in there, which is really good.
A quick follow-up real quick. The third year, that's what allows them to go over the cap.
Yeah. So if you're with the team for 2 years, you get early bird rights. If you're with the team for 3 years, you get full Larry Bird rights. So even like during that season, they could sign him to an extension and lock him in if everything's working out well. But they can go over the cap. They don't have to worry about the cap with regards to him in that situation. And go ahead.
The difference is they can't do that with Malik, right?
No, Malik is what you call early birds.
Yeah.
And actually, I really wish that Malik would have got a 3-year deal, not a 2-year deal, because they signed him with the mid-level exception. And the mid-level, you're allowed to go up to 4 seasons. But whether it was Malik's people or it was the Kings, either way, they didn't feel comfortable with that. And so they signed just a 2-year, $20 million deal, right?
I think Kenny said that like 2 games into the season, like, oh, really wish they had signed him for a 3rd year.
Yeah, I thought so too. And that's always the problem, right? It's like you want to make sure that if you've got a good player and you've got a good contract, that you get that contract as long as possible. But we're also talking about a Kings team that just got bit by the Rashawn Holmes contract, where it looked spectacular when they signed it. And by midway through year 2, it wasn't. And, you started, actually, it wasn't even that. It was midway through year 1 of the contract. It started to go a little south on you. And those things happen. But like with the Malik deal, Malik's young. I mean, 24, 25 years old. And he's got a lot of really good basketball ahead of him. And the fact that you can't sign him for anything that you want when he hits free agency, that's a big deal. You want to make sure that you have all of the mechanisms in place to keep your players. And so the early bird, we talked about this the other day, the early bird, I mean, he can get over 17 million in year 1. So that's a pretty sizable contract. And I don't know if he'll get more than that, but you can sign him up to, I think it's 4 years and 84 million is the math that I did. So again, I think it's good to have that 3rd year with players. So then that way you do still you have a lot more control over their rights moving forward.
Sasha, is it Bezenkov or Bezenkov?
I think we're going with Bezenkov.
Bezenkov.
I don't think it matters though. Bezenkov. I mean, Nemanja Bjelica, like it didn't matter how you said his name to him. He would say, yeah. Yeah. Like, is it Nemanja? Yeah.
That's what he said. Like, that's what he
Is it
told us one day.
Yeah. Is it pneumonia? Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, bro, you're not helping me here.
And I think he was just whatever. And I remember I was with Jason at the time. No, I want to say it right.
Right.
What is it? Nemanja. I always thought his name was Nemanja, but I don't feel like that's how anyone says it.
No, I don't think so.
That's
either.
why I always say, hey, tell me about Sasha's contract, because I'm just not bothering. He's Sasha.
Yeah, well, I think, and it's funny because that's not even his real name.
Oh, well, great. Well,
it's Alexander. It's Alexander Bezenkov.
Well, where the hell did Sasha come from?
I don't know. Like, if you look at the
okay,
NBA,
well, my name's Leroy. That's what I want to be called from now on. Just call me Leroy. That's my name. Just because. The hell with it. It doesn't matter. Call me Leroy.
Just call me Leroy. Leroy, is that the bearded name we're going with?
Yes. Now that
Leroy,
now
Leroy with the beard.
Leroy.
That's hilarious. I bring all this up to say I was just going to say Sasha Bezenkov, but I know I want to try and get his name correct. But they had a tweet that came out yesterday from basketballnews.com, and it said EuroLeague MVP Sasha Bezenkov, one of Sacramento Kings free agency signings, scored 275 points in just 26 dribbles last year. And I saw that and I said, this is phenomenal for the Kings, because that's all they really need him to do. Like, be ready to catch and shoot. That's all you need to do. And if he's a marksman on that, oh man, I was rubbing my hands like Birdman.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, if you watch that video of him, it's really impressive. It's like, it was a game where Clay scored 60 and he only dribbled the ball 12 times.
Yeah,
that's what it's like. He doesn't need any dribbles at all, and he doesn't look to dribble. He catches. Sometimes he gives you like a head and shoulder fake and then comes up firing. But he's tall. He shoots at the really high release angle, and I think he's going to have zero problem getting that shot off in the NBA. And actually, I think he'll have a lot more room than he did in Europe at the NBA level. Just like the spacing is better, and he's going to have all kinds of open looks, and he's really, really good from with open looks on the season. So yeah, I think he's going to be fun to watch. He really just fits seamlessly, and the back cuts and stuff are huge as well. He just gives you a different wrinkle than the players that you already have. And we talked about this before. Like, I think one of the biggest issues in the playoffs wasn't so much that Sabonis struggled, it was that all of his shooters struggled. And when you got Harrison Barnes like falling apart in the last 3 games, and you got Keegan Murray, who took 3 games before he started scoring at all, and then Kevin Huerter, who really struggled the entire time to shoot. This is just an added shooter. And same thing with Chris Duarte. Like, you just have more options. When someone goes cold, you go to someone else. And I think it's going to work out well for him.
You think Malik can... You think we're talking about that second unit? Obviously, Sasha is going to be a big part of that second unit. We were talking yesterday because we've talked about Huerter and the potential growth of Kevin Huerter, and how, like, I think he can actually be a little bit better than he was last year, especially after listening to him talk this offseason. Do you think Malik could take another step for Sacramento next year?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think he can take a huge step forward. Last season he was really good, but I think we get caught up in what he looked like in the playoffs, right? So in the playoffs, he was just a monster for Sacramento, and we all saw it. Like, he was so fun to watch. And, like, what in the playoffs, he averaged 19 points, 5.4 rebounds, 3.6 assists. He was electric, absolutely electric. And he didn't even shoot the ball well. He only shot 41% from the field and 33% from 3. What we need from Malik is not for him to be 18 to 20 points. What you need him to do is to find a way to smooth the peaks and valleys. And that means come in better shape. It means do your work early. It means be ready every single game. Because what happens is, when you show that you can do something like what he did in the playoffs, expectations change. They change for who and what you should be as a player. And I really think that, as opposed to having these huge stretches where he's just so good and he's putting up 30 a game, and then other stretches where he's, putting up 4 or 6 points and really struggling. He just needs to find a way to be sort of even kill all season long. And the same thing I say about Kevin Huerter. Like, I think Malik can easily average 15 points a game off the bench, and that's like 1.5 points per game more than what he shot last year. That's just being more consistent and getting to the free throw line more. I mean, it's a guy that shot like almost 90% from the free throw line. Just keep getting to the line, find out new ways, watch tape of Jamal Crawford, of, all of the great six men that we've seen throughout the league that bring that energy off the bench. And I think, like even like Lou Williams, like find ways to do some of the things that they did and keep growing as a player. And I think he will.
Yeah, I was talking about this yesterday, and I think back to when I first, started watching Malik Monk in college at Kentucky, and he's not the biggest guy or anything like that, but man, he's just a bucket. Like, he can just score. It doesn't matter who's guarding him, what part of the court he's on, he can just score. And I always wondered, statistically, is there more that he can do with his game? Can he get to where a Tyler Hero is, where he's averaging 20, or Jordan Clarkson, where I think he averaged 18, 19, 20 points per game? Can he get to that skill-wise? Then I guess a two-part question. Can he get to that skill-wise? Can he get to that on the Kings?
Yeah, I mean, I think the bigger answer is that I don't think that those other teams had the players that are playing alongside him that were going to put up the numbers they're going to put up. So, like, can he average 18 a game? Yeah, there's no question in my mind that if you let Malik Monk run wild for 82 games playing either as a starter or 30-plus minutes, that he's going to average 18 points a game. But that's not who the Kings are. So, that would mean fewer points for De'Aaron Fox, for Domantas Sabonis, for efficient scorers like Harrison Barnes or Keegan Murray. Like, everybody needs shots. And the same Kevin Huerter. Kevin Huerter is a great three-point shooter. Malik Monk is an electric three-point shooter, but he's more of a bulk shooter than he is like a true marksman. And that's something, again, those are areas where he can improve, but it's whether you need it. And, I think this team will be better by Keegan Murray ascending as a scorer and letting some of these other guys either stay where they're at or drop back a little bit. Especially like a Harrison Barnes. Like, I could easily see a scenario where, De'Aaron Fox averages 27 points a game this year, but he doesn't need to. He could average 30, but he doesn't need to. This is, if you're going to win, if winning is the ultimate goal, then it shouldn't be about one player's stats. It should be about the team winning together and sharing like they did last year. I thought that was one of the identity of this team, was that they were very unselfish and that they all helped each other and that they all made each other better. And you should hopefully get more of that as we go forward.
Himmer, is there, talking about Malik and tying Sasha back into this, we talked about how the Kings just, running it back, right? They just stood pat. They've got their guys, Harrison, Domas, Alex Lynn, all of that. But it feels like, given, what Kenny just said, the stat about the shooting, without the dribbling, and, the playmaker that Malik is, it feels like perhaps the biggest adjustment for Sacramento might come with that second unit. Feels like Sasha is a really important piece in terms of Mike Brown, Monty McNair, the coaching staff, the front office for the Sacramento Kings, and it's up to the guys on the court to figure out how to implement him. And it feels like the biggest adjustment for this upcoming season may actually come from that second unit.
Yeah,
the most adjusting has to come from that second unit.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'll tell you this, like, if you really look at the way they played last year, like, if you add the floor spacer that Sasha is with that second unit, instantly there's more room for Malik Monk to run, right? But I'll point out the other sort of downfall. Malik Monk loves to throw the alley-oop. Who's he going to throw an alley-oop to on that second unit? There's no one. There is no one that he's going to be able to, do the drop pass. Like, again, I think Trey Lyles can do a lot of things on the court, but he's not. I mean, on occasion he puts a film on a poster, but that's not his game. That is Rashawn Holmes' game. It is Chimezie Metu's game to go vertical and put someone on a poster. And so I think everything will be an adjustment for these guys. They're really going to have to learn how to play together. I think adding Chris Duarte to this, mix is going to be really interesting. And I think the key, though, is that you're surrounding Malik with really, really high IQ basketball players. And so you hope that just the overall IQ of this team going up, 10 points should actually help them be better. And look, this team doesn't have to score more than they did last year to be better. They need to play defense better. That's for sure. But they also they can just keep becoming more and more efficient, and they have to grow the offense. Like we saw it in the playoffs. You ran up against somebody who knew how to stop what you were doing, and you didn't have a counter to it in a lot of situations. And so I expect this offense this year to be a little bit more dynamic and versatile than it was last year. And that second unit is going to be a big part of it.
When you can you talk specifically about that? Because when you say more dynamic, do you think last year they relied a little bit too heavily on the three ball outside of maybe De'Aaron Fox, and this year they'll do maybe more scoring in the paint, more getting to the free throw line to go along with being able to shoot the three ball? What specifically do you think would make them more dynamic?
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up a couple of those points, because if I'm not mistaken, the Kings were the number 1 2-point field goal percentage team in the league last year. This is a team that really could do a lot of things on the court. And they got to the free throw line a lot. So I don't know how to say I guess it's, how do you become more dynamic? What I mean is maybe more versatile. Maybe it's not just all DHOs. Maybe there are more pick and rolls mixed in. Maybe there are more other situations mixed in that help you get easier baskets. But what you can't do is rely on one specific thing. And then when somebody takes that away, when somebody double teams Sabonis or starts hacking him and playing him really, really hard, you don't have a counter for it. So the Kings finished second in field goal percentage overall. They finished first in 2-point field goal percentage at 58.6%. Free throw attempts, they were 7th in the league. So all of the things that you asked about, like the scoring, none of that was a problem. But what you got to be able to do is not be a one-trick pony and have some team learn something about you and shut you down. And that's why I think they, the next step in their evolution is to get better at the DHO game and start having more and more options off the dribble handoff. It also comes down to Sabonis being able to turn and fire that 18-foot jump shot. So there are specific players that need to do specific things in that offense to make it better. But also I think on top of that, you've got to be able to switch it up and do a different game and be able to play different styles and play fast and play slow and do all of the things that they did last year, but just do it better. And so, will they average almost 121 points a game this season? I don't know, maybe not, but, and they may not have the best offensive rating in the history of the game for a second straight year, but what they can do is they can be more efficient. They can be more versatile and they can be better. They can be, it all comes down to net, efficiency. Are you 6 points better than your opponent? If you're 6 points better than your opponent, you're going to win 50 something games.
He right off them stats. The Kings was cooking last year on offense. Boy, they was
that actually leads to a question I have.
Uh-oh.
It's not about offense. We'll come back. Our 1320 Kings insider and creator of the Kings Beat, James Ham, is here with us. We'll close out this day. We'll close out this week strong when we return on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320.
Did you guys see that video of that little girl hitting Mike Pence with a water balloon?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Get him good? Did it break?
Oh, perfect.
Oh, it was flawless.
I haven't seen a better throw since Pat Mahomes was playing. That was spot on.
Yeah.
Hector, that's a weird question. Who are your top 5 athletes you'd want to see in person?
Oh, that's what we were talking about that yesterday.
Oh, okay.
And shout out to Kyle, who might have been listening because he's going to see Shohei Ohtani today.
Yeah, see, that's one.
Well, we'll get the rest of them. I got to throw these away.
Leroy. Where you going, Leroy? I'll have to watch that. Did he freak out?
No,
they,
he kept it moving. Like he took it, busted on his head, and he just kept walking.
How old was she?
No older than 11.
Oof. That's a little too old to be throwing a water balloon and not knowing.
Distance too. So, it was from distance too.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look that one up.
She couldn't have walked that water balloon over and got it any perfect.
She'll be throwing 90 miles an hour in 5 years.
Wow.
The best part is the way she turned away from it.
Got his ass.
Bro, it's like she'd made that throw from like right field trying to throw someone out at home plate.
So I don't get this. Is that like was this the whole point of the like because everyone's throwing water balloons, right?
Yeah, I think they were all
her.
I think they're all meant to. It's just she just had the
She
best throw
just
of the day.
drilled them right in the head.
I'm gonna have to see this.
You haven't? Oh, you didn't see it? I thought you were watching it. She a legend.
No.
Watch it. Here, wait. Here it comes. Here it comes. Bang!
Oh, and you see her like turn around like wasn't me. It wasn't me.
See that big
Yeah, that's
throw?
that sheepish. I didn't do it. I can't believe that they're allowing people to throw things at him. Like,
Ooh,
I mean, he's a political
that is
candidate.
a-
He was the
Yeah, that's
former
kinda
vice
crazy.
president of the
That
United
is-
States.
gutsy move, man.
I don't know whose idea this was.
That is a gutsy move.
Unless they provided the water balloons, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. That's another thing. I hope they did.
Did you see? Did you see? Oh, hold on. Did you see Alfonso's tweet? D'Lo and Casey waiting outside the boss's office after the
I did
show.
see that.
Shout out to the boss who's still watching on his TV. The other boss. Y'all are too funny, man. The chatty house is funny. Y'all make me laugh. We're hanging out here with a
Funny group,
1320
man,
Kings
funny group.
Insider. Definitely. Very funny group. A 1320 Kings Insider and creator of the Kings Beat, James Ham here. James, KC, you guys sure were talking about the Sacramento Kings offense a minute ago.
You're
and-
gonna be a downer now?
Malik-
What's going
I'm
on?
not a downer. I'm a broadcast journalist. I
You
ask
are.
questions. So did they do anything to address their defensive concerns?
Nope.
Okay. Because you said you said, oh, they don't necessarily have to score more to be better than they were last year. And I was like, well, I don't know that they're going to be better on the defensive end. So I feel like that might be the only way for them to be better.
I'll answer further. Okay, so like Chris Duarte is a better defender, and he's more consistent than anything you got from Terrence Davis last year. He just is. You know, how many times do we see Mike Brown like teaching Terrence Davis defensive stuff on the court during timeouts?
That's fair, but didn't you put Terrence in for offense?
Well, yeah, but that's not the way it works. You got to play both ends, and you can't cause your team to lose as many points as you gain by having you out there. And so, you know, again, it's about net rating. It's not about offensive rating or defensive rating. It's about either a negative or a plus on the other side of those two. And so I think by improving that position with a player like Chris Duarte, that helps. I don't know that Chris Duarte is like the answer defensively. I mean, he's a solid defender. He's a better defender than what you've had. I think Kessler Edwards, if he can actually get minutes, can provide a lift defensively. And, you know, again, it's very similar to the Terrence Davis swap out. I don't know he's going to be as versatile as Chimezie Metu, but I think Sasha Bezenkov is an extremely high basketball IQ player. If you leave him on an island, he's going to get beat here and there, and that's just the way it goes. But number one, Chimezie Metu still got beat despite his athleticism. And then the other thing is, like, Chimezie never really learned how to use his verticality on the defensive end to help you. So he's not a true shot blocker, despite the fact that he can probably jump up and grab the top of the backboard. He just doesn't have that in him. And that's okay, because like if anyone out there plays basketball, you know, either you're a shot blocker or you're not. It's all about timing, and it can be a lot about athleticism and a lot about other things, but it really is about timing and you know, not being afraid to go up and you know, be part of a moment. And that just wasn't something that Chimezie did. Every once in a while, he'd jump up and block something and go crazy. But I think you're going to improve at that position by having a more stable person that knows the job and is in position and does the work ahead of time, as opposed to using his athleticism to make up for a mistake that he may have made. And, you know, if you can do that at every position, and you can get some overall upgrade in cohesiveness because you've been together for a year, if you can get Keegan Murray to be a better defender in year 2, you know, I think you can start to see how the Kings can be better defensively.
Yeah. Is it crazy for me to think that they'll be better just with another year under Mike Brown, getting better?
Yeah.
I don't think that's crazy.
Like, I don't think they're going to be
It's not.
top 10 defense, but I think they can improve as a defensive team just with another year of cohesion, another year under the system of Mike Brown, understanding his philosophies and what he wants on the defensive end. I think they can improve. Now, can they improve enough with just that to be a championship contender? That's yet to be seen. But I think they'll improve just by showing up and being together for another year.
Yeah, and I'll add to that too. Like, Jordy Fernandez is the defensive coach, and he's a really good defensive coach. I mean, he trained under Mike Malone for a long time. He's trained under Mike Brown for a long time, but I mean, he spent 5 or 6 seasons in Denver with Mike Malone, who is, you know, one of the better defensive-minded coaches. Whether his players play defense all the time usually comes down to like individuals, but like, this is a team that's learning. And then on top of that, you get Doug Christie, who's wandering around, pulling guys aside and teaching them things that actually matter in the game of basketball. It's not just like standard drills. It's fundamental. It's ways to think about defense, ways to think about like what your presence is on the floor on both ends, you know, of the court. And so like having Doug there, who's been working with Sabonis all summer, who worked with Davion all summer last year, you know, these are things that actually matter. And again, if you start winning, I also think the culture shift starts to happen where guys who have the potential to be really, really good defenders, but turn it on and off, like De'Aaron Fox, but there's going to be more times where he turns it on this year than last year, because he all of a sudden has like a new incentive to get his team to a different place, to get his team, you know, to the second, the third round of the playoffs, where that just, you know, was always pie in the sky before until it actually materialized last season.
For those that were wondering what that noise was, James's internet is melting at the top of the hill.
It's trying.
It's normally James freezes.
Yeah.
Today, he may be melting.
Itsy bitsy spider.
I'm using the phone today because I was concerned about the Wi-Fi, but let's see if it holds out.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's see.
To a commercial. You mentioned the coaching staff there a minute ago. I don't know, maybe a dumb question or just a nerdy question. Did they add anyone with Lindsay going to Stockton?
Not that they've announced yet, but this was a big coaching staff as it was.
Yeah.
So if they do add somebody, I'm going to guess it's a back of the bench person who, you know, has some player development like background and stuff like that.
Lindsay was, right?
Well, where was Luke Louds? Wasn't he a player development guy?
Yeah, but he's also a back of the bench assistant.
Okay.
At least he was last year. I mean, I think the hope was that you might have a coach get, a big job like Jordy, and then you could make some adjustments. It's very specific. I think you're allowed 3 front of the bench assistants, and then after that, everyone else has to be back of the bench. And that doesn't mean that like Luke Laux isn't a good coach because he's back of the bench. It means that you've got Jordy Fernandez, Jay Triano, and Doug Christie up front, and so it's just different. And so you got to work your way up, and it depends on opportunity. And so far, we haven't seen that opportunity pop up.
One call back is we talked about that Kings Warriors game where Herter got fouled 3 times on one shot.
Yep.
They need to bring that, elevate that one guy who was the only guy on the bench that knew they had to foul. Remember when Steph was in the corner and they were
yeah,
they were letting the time run out. It's like, hey, you have to foul.
I can't remember who that was.
I'm not.
The eye test says Luke Laux is going to be moving up the ranks very quickly.
I think so.
I agree,
especially with Jordy probably having an opportunity coming up here pretty soon. If his being Luke Laux's opportunity doesn't come in Sacramento, it may very well come wherever Jordy goes. But some people just look and act like head coaches, and man, Luke Laux looks like a head coach to me.
He's got that look for sure.
Yeah, he looks like a head coach.
And he knows how to speak. He definitely, like, his storytelling was spot on. Everything was spot on. Yeah,
I think that's kind of an underrated part of coaching, or maybe underrated isn't the right word. I think that's a part of coaching we don't think about very often. We think about X's and O's and schemes and all of that stuff, and we forget about the simple element of communication. And if you're good, like Luke Laux is, in front of a microphone and telling stories and different things like that, it means you're a good communicator. That means when he's trying to get a message across to his team, to his players, he can communicate it in a way that they'll understand. He could communicate it in a way that they'll embrace. And that, I mean, I got a coach in front of me and look what he does for a living. Like, communication is a really important component for a head coach.
Yeah.
I think it's huge. And the one thing I'll also point out that gets kind of missed is that some coaches have the ability to, spit a good game, and they, they're a good quote. So we like to call it, they're a good quote. There are other coaches that don't like the media and don't want to buy into the media at all, and don't want to have conversations with the media and allow them to be part of what's happening. Right. And so that doesn't play either, because, like, the media is still a powerful voice in your community. Like, a lot of what we write, we say on the radio, the things we podcast, like, people think long and hard about it. And, you're able to sort of change the dynamic by having honest conversations with your media. Like, if you can't explain the why to what you're doing and you want to get snarky, that usually doesn't play well, because it's not like your media members are like rubes who just started watching the game of basketball the day that they got a job covering a team. Most of the people that are, covering your team are seasoned. They understand the game. They think about the game. They're people who have watched a ton of basketball and know the game really well. And, like, that doesn't help when you're disrespectful, or you're short with the media, or you just big time them and you don't think that they're an actual part of what's happening. And I know some people say, well, it's just noise out there. And that's very true. But, like, if you got everyone in your city writing negative pieces about you as a coach all the time, because you've kind of made that the standard for yourself, and things go south, it's not like you're going to have any grace with the people who are watching, and the fans and the people who are paying your bills. Like, that's just not the way it goes. So I do think that there is something to that, like, being able to have conversations with the media. And it doesn't mean you have to be friends with the media, but, like, don't be disrespectful, because we have seen that a couple of times in Sacramento, and it just doesn't play well. And you lose, people who aren't on your side or against you, but if they're fully not on your side, that's a problem. Because that's just, like, the public opinion, like, sways one way or the other with how you deal with certain people and how you deal with, personalities.
So Summer League, we think is coming to an end tomorrow. What's next after that, James? Is it literally just, rest and relaxation? I know Sabonis isn't playing. I don't think they have anybody else playing in the World Cup. Do they? Off the top of my head, I don't know.
Ooh, I don't think so. No. Yeah, like Sasha, I think is doing Olympic qualifiers, I believe, but I'm not positive. Outside of that, yeah, I don't think so.
Kind of your final month and a half break or so before. Well, I'm not saying they're sitting around doing nothing, but there's no Sacramento Kings business for the next month and a half or so, huh?
No, but I think September 1st is when you start to see most players roll into Sacramento. I mean, some players they don't come in till after that, but we've already seen that, again, guys like De'Aaron Fox have been in town a ton all summer long, but August.
State the other day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. August, you need to go and get whatever vacation you had planned in and get it out of the way, so it's not a distraction. You're ready to roll and you're in great shape coming into camp, because you need to ramp up. And that's what, you hope that your players are doing this stuff all summer long. You send trainers out to make sure that they're doing their stuff and following through, just to check on them and do, basic follow through stuff. But this is sort of, we're entering the dead time after tomorrow's game.
James, I didn't need to see this from him, but I was really happy I did. Kessler Edwards' performance last night. Did you feel like that was a game that you needed to see from him?
It was. Yeah, I think he needs to show that he has the confidence to keep shooting and to be part of it. There's only one thing worse than missing 3-pointers, and that's not taking them. And, so you can't have him lose his confidence in his shot and back away. I kind of wish that he had the opportunity to shoot more of the shots he's going to shoot in a regular season game, which is more of the corner stuff. Not a lot of top of the key stuff, which we saw a few of those from him over the last, 5 or 6 games. But yeah, I think he did need to show that he's ready, that he can be a player. And, I think we're seeing the limitations very quickly, but I also think that limitations for certain players is okay. What you need from him, you're never going to need a game where he takes somebody off the dribble 5 times and goes and dunks a bunch of times. And if you got to that stage, then, everything else has gone wrong in your season. So the fact that, he understands his role is to, shoot the corner 3 and to, on occasion, do a back cut and get an easy dunk. That's great. But it's just really tough to show how good you are as a player when that's what you're asked to do at one level, and then you get to another area like the summer league session and you aren't more than that. And I think people start to freak out a little bit. But I think it was a good day for him.
Do you look at somebody like Dom and think, hey, this guy should get a shot in the league? Or is he one of those guys that you talk about where you say, yeah, he could go to the G League, but he's probably not going to get to the NBA? He should just, that's when they take more money, maybe a 6-figure contract, and go overseas for the next 5, 6, 7 years. Where do you see him playing professionally?
Yeah, I mean, I think with a lot of players, they go overseas and they make good money for a bunch of years. And then there's always a point where they go, I want to give this one last shot, right? And I want to go back and I want to see if I can make it. We saw it with Jack Cooley. And, Jack Cooley is one of the great dudes ever. Just such a fun guy. But he's done incredible things playing in Japan. He's a superstar there and he wins championships there. And, but he needed to give it one more try. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of where we're at with Mike Dom. And I really like his game, but it's kind of a little bit of what you're going to see from Sasha Bezenkov. And, again, maybe he's a better shot blocker than Sasha, but overall, I just don't think that he's going to get the opportunity here. Maybe he gets a training camp invite. And we talked about this the other day. I did go look it up. In the past, you were only able from July 1st until the start of the NBA season. Actually, I think it goes back even further, but July 1st should just say the day 1 of the regular season. You're able to carry, in the past, it was 20 players. they've bumped up the two-way contracts to 3, and they actually bumped up your roster size to 21 for right now as well. So the Kings can carry 21 all through training camp, which is good because that gives you 3 extra spots. If you have your 15 rostered players, your 3 two-ways, that's 18. And then you can have that extra 3 players to invite to camp. That's where I think the Kings need to figure out what they're going to do. And I know a lot of people fall in love with Jordan Ford and guys like Mike Dom, or like the guy I love watching is Alex O'Connell, all these things.
Fuck it.
Yeah,
Dude,
isn't he
fuck
fun? He is so much fun. And he is electric going to the rim too. Like we didn't see that. We just saw the 3-point shot. Like he's got big old hops. Like he loves to go in and hammer on somebody. So yeah, so you got to make smart decisions here if you're building out your G League or your program, right? It's good to bring players in and give them a shot to compete and give them some guaranteed money, especially guys that you already own their G League rights. So when they go to the G League, they'll stick around. A guy like Alex O'Connell, if you give him $100,000 bonus to come to training camp and then waive him, he can still go to the G League because you already own his rights. A guy like Mike Dom, I think that it's a little different because he doesn't have, I don't think he has G League rights anywhere. So that's a problem. But still, I think that, between Jordan and Dom and O'Connell, like there are some players here that you're interested in. And then there's also a bunch of other players on other teams during Summer League that you should be interested in as well. Like the Summer League is a scouting event as well. It's not just about, like what you have in front of you that's on your roster that, whether they can play or not, or whether you're going to give them a deal or not. So I think the Kings will keep their options open.
Alex O'Connell going to finish second in MVP voting next year in the G League. He going to be that dude for Sacramento or for Stockton next year.
Kings
Watch.
got one.
He
Might not be on the real team, but they got.
He'll be on Stockton.
Yeah,
big league club.
On the point. Yeah, I was watching Alex O'Connell. I remember you brought him up. I don't remember if it was after a classic game or the first Summer League game, but I was like, oh, that's James' guy. He's out there cooking.
He had like
Out there
6
cooking.
threes in that second California Classic game. Like,
Wasn't
Yeah.
he like 5 of 6 or 6 of 7 or like something absurd like
cooking.
that?
Yeah, I think yesterday he was 5 of 8 from 3.
Mm.
Yeah, when he gets cooking, and it doesn't even matter. He's a dude who pulls up like jumping sideways, a little bit
don't
like
care.
Kyle Guy.
He
Yeah.
don't care if he's cooking; he's gonna shoot.
It's my kind of guy
I'm gonna
right there.
I'm gonna get this stove warmed up one way or the other. Good performance from Keon Ellis. I thought Keon Ellis stringed together a couple of really good games too, James. It felt like I had used I think we talked about it. He was like, it looked like he was jittery in Sacramento. And then the more games he played, the more it kind of wore off and the better he got. And he was a guy that the broadcast crew was really raving about last night, how he can do a lot of different things on the floor.
Yeah, he's an instigator and he can rebound and he plays the passing lanes really, really well. He's a blast to watch. He's got a really good energy about him. And he's a player that, I think on a 2-way contract, they've invested in him and they're investing in him again this season. You hope that he can take another step, that he can get bigger and stronger, and basically, be able to hold down more of a position. And, his pathway to the parent club just got a little more difficult with Colby Jones getting drafted. But I like him as a player. I think that there's a possibility that they do some of the stuff they did early with him last year, which is try to have him run the point a little bit more. It's something I think they'll do with Colby Jones as well at the G League level, is have him run the point to try to add that element to his game. But even still, if not, I think he's a super high energy, super fun guy. He plays defense. He hits the 3 ball, and he's just kind of growing into who he's going to be at the NBA level. And he's one of those players that you drafted knowing exactly who and what he is. And you're just allowing him to grow into that role at the G League, just be a really good NBA role player. And maybe you make it up here.
Well,
Jordan Ford played well too. Like
Absolutely.
there's some guys who I think had solid summers. Unfortunately, I don't know what it means for them. Jordan, it might mean something. It's the one I kind of get hung up on. Jordan, it might mean something. We know Keon's in a spot, Kessler's in a spot. There's a couple of guys along with Kobe. Obviously, he left early last night after falling pretty hard on his side on that dunk attempt. But I thought there's a handful of guys that had really good summers. I just don't know what it means for them here in Sacramento.
And we still don't even know what's going to happen with Neemias Queta. Like, that's the other one. It's just kind of hanging out there. That Neemias Queta is someone that, you kind of had a lot invested in, and then he got hurt, and so we'll have to see how they handle that situation going forward.
James is real quick. Are we sure this is the final game tomorrow, or is there playoff implications? I thought it was over yesterday.
Yeah. I thought it was over yesterday too. I thought it was over fully, so I have no idea. I think tomorrow is the last game officially. It used to be that you're guaranteed 5 games, but I think they went away from that. So I was surprised when all of a sudden they've got another game.
I thought it was 4, and then you got especially when you have they had the California Classic, the teams that and then you had the teams that were in Utah, and then like in the middle of last night's game, the NBA was like, "Oh, here's Saturday's schedule," and I'm like looking at it, "Oh, cool, Sacramento versus Milwaukee. What the hell for?" All right,
you get to see man,
Just got to see Mike Brown and his little grandson. That was good stuff.
Well,
I don't know if you saw it on telecast.
Look for the stuff in the crowd. I guess that's what we're doing, and then bitch about the announce crew, which I guess I only did that once. Yeah, I only did that.
Jamal
once.
Crawford, and I don't know who the other guy was, but
I like Jamal. Jamal was good.
Yeah, Jamal's very fun. Appreciate you guys so much for being with us. Make sure you head over to thekingsbeat.com, become a premium subscriber over there. Subscribe to the Kings Beat podcast as well if you're